Aaron Schock was once a rising star in the Republican Party. I served with him in Congress. Elected when he was just 27 years old, he took on an almost celebrity status, even appearing on the cover of Men's Health, something I could never do. But 6 years ago, after 6 years of his time in Congress, there were allegations of misdeeds regarding the decoration of his office and the potential misuse of a campaign vehicle. According to his attorney, 30 federal agents were involved. There were 2 grand juries convened. He was charged with 24 felonies, 2 of which have been dismissed, and he faces 80 to 100 years in prison. Yet 4 years later, the prosecutor was reassigned after lying to the court. He says he has spent nearly $3 million defending himself, and yet he has still never had his day in court. It's time to hear Aaron's side of the story, and he joins me here today. Aaron, tell me, why are we at this situation 4 years after the fact that you left Congress?
Well, thank you for having me on, Jason. As you know, anytime you're involved in a legal matter, your attorneys say, hey, don't say anything, and justice will prevail. And I've always believed in our criminal justice system, that they're interested in the truth. But sadly, it became very clear that over the 2 years that they were investigating me, that they were on a massive fishing expedition. They went so far while I was still in office, the Obama Justice Department, to wire up a low-level staffer in my office. They directed that staffer without a search warrant to steal documents in my office, to steal attorney-client privilege material, and to even steal records of the House of Representatives. And then they were forced in court to admit they didn't find anything. So, of course, the natural question is,
okay, so let me put up this graphic. One of the things that catches my attention here is that the House counsel is there to protect the institution, not necessarily the members of Congress. But I want to put up on the screen what he actually has said in this. This is the House counsel talking about the FBI and the Department of Justice. Such conduct likely constitutes a federal crime on the part of the FBI, on the part of federal agents who induced the commission of that underlying crime. So he's taken the position not against Aaron Schock, but in support of Aaron Schock.
Support of me, and to your point, the support of the institution of the House of Representatives. The government has repeatedly infringed on the separation of powers of the institution of Congress, and unfortunately that letter has never been responded to by the Justice Department. They infringed upon the constitutional rights of Congress as well to make and interpret its own rules. And in the way they've charged me in these supposed felonies is almost laughable when you understand them. Let me give you 2 quick examples. One, I purchased a car with campaign funds, which is perfectly legal for the use driving around my district. We submitted to the FEC the purchase of that vehicle and the payment to the dealership as a transportation expense. The government now has charged me with a false statement to a federal agency. They believe it should have said vehicle purchase, and they've charged me
as opposed to transportation expense.
20-year felony.
And as I recall, they were the news article initially said, oh, you had run up, more vehicle miles than what you sold it for, but there were multiple vehicles involved, correct?
Correct. Of course, as you know, when you drive around your district, you're not always in the same vehicle at all times. And my staff and I were estimating my mileage as we went around the district, which the House Finance Office accepted as estimates. Okay, the government now comes back and says you can't have estimates.
Okay, so let's go to your office. One of the criticisms is that you use this extravagant amount of money to decorate your office. Downton Abbey was the thing that was tagged in your office. What's your viewpoint on that?
Well, first of all, it's not true. The truth of the matter is, Jason, I've never seen the show Downton Abbey. I hadn't even heard of the show Downton Abbey until the Washington Post ran that story. The next day, I did an interview with CBS Evening News where I said, this is not true. The decorator who did the office gave an interview to the Huffington Post.
Where did the money come from?
The money came from my budget, my office budget. So I spent $25,000 from my office budget on my office.
So members are given what's called the members' reimbursable allowance. It's roughly $1.4 million, but correct. You spent money, $25,000 or so, of that office budget on your office.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but what were you charged with there?
Well, so there one of the items we purchased, for example, the decorator purchased, was a light fixture. And according to the House rules, you can buy fixtures but not furniture. And so the government has come in and said, well, that's not a fixture, that's a piece of furniture. Again, a false statement to a federal agency, 20-year felony.
So you're facing 20 years because they say that you put it on your form saying it was a fixture as opposed to a piece of furniture, even though it's a piece of lighting.
Correct.
I mean, that's really, and you're facing 20
Correct.
years against that. Now,
Correct.
why has this taken so long? I mean, I've seen multiple different prosecutors. I believe
Right.
you're now on your third judge.
Correct. So typically the Justice Department, this is my first rodeo, my first time dealing with this. Typically the Justice Department defers to local U.S. Attorney's office. They get to run their little fiefdom and they defer to their judgment. What's happened over the past 4 years is the local U.S. Attorney's office, this Obama holdover Justice Department in Central Illinois, has proven a lack of judgment, frankly. First, not only did they wire up my informant illegally and steal documents of mine.
So
in the
that
house.
didn't happen with the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C.
No, this is a local office who saw me as a rising star in the Republican Party and their ticket to stardom, their ticket to move up the ladder within the Justice Department. After they wired up my informant and didn't find anything, they then, during the grand jury process, used my Fifth Amendment right to not appear against me. And when we heard about it, we called them out on it to the judge. The judge asked the prosecutor's office, were you doing this? They emphatically denied it. 3 months later, they had to admit to the court they had lied, and in fact, they had used my Fifth Amendment against me 11 times on 11 different occasions, and yet the case continues to move forward. And finally, just a couple weeks ago, we found out that the same U.S. Attorney's Office was engaged in ex parte communication with the judge in my case about another criminal matter, and that's why we've now got a new judge.
Do you think you were charged 2 days after Donald Trump was elected? Do you
Correct.
think that's a coincidence?
No. I believe this, look, this U.S. attorney, we know contacted members of Congress advocating for help becoming the next U.S. attorney because, again, he was the guy who was prosecuting Aaron Schock. We know that he was a finalist as one of the finalists for this
case,
White House.
I've got about 15 seconds. The
Yeah.
case, you now have paperwork with the Supreme Court. What are the possibilities there?
Well, we hope the Supreme Court accepts our hearing because there's important constitutional concerns about allowing the Justice Department to reinterpret the House rules, which are the fiefdom
Aaron,
of the House.
Thank you very much for being here and explaining a lot more to this case.